On today's show, we preview the light heavyweight title bout at UFC 247 between champion John Bones Jones and challenger Dominic the Devastator Reyes. Successful title defences over Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos in 2019 saw Jones end the decade as both light heavyweight champ and pound-for-pound king.
And still UFC light heavyweight champion of the world, Johnny Bones Jones.
Emerging as a standout from a new generation in the light heavyweight division, Dominic Reyes has blazed his way to a perfect 12-0 record.
Dominic Reyes makes it look easy. Wow.
And the Devastator's power striking has now earned him a shot at UFC Gold. Will John Jones's reign come to an end at UFC 247? Or will Dominic Reyes be yet another who bows to the king? Hello and welcome to UFC Inside the Octagon. John Gooden alongside Dan Hardy, back for the second time this year. And Dan, first time around, we had the biggest MMA star. This time, we have the pound-for-pound greatest. John Jones will be looking to defend his title at UFC 247 against Dominic Reyes. I think that's who we start the conversation with, Dan. He is the guy who has kind of graduated from that class of new breed fighters. We've seen the rest kind of fall to the wayside. Dominic Reyes has got himself that title challenge, and it's looking pretty damn impressive. 12-0, 6-fight win streak in the UFC.
He is, absolutely. And, you know, what we can expect from Dominic Reyes is someone that's got the confidence of an unbeaten fighter. That's what we've seen in every one of his fights so far. He's confident to push forward and land his shots because he's effective with it. I mean, a lot of first-round finishes this guy's got. My question is whether that changes when he faces John Jones, because he's saying all the right things going in, but when you step in there against John Jones, like, can you actually employ that confidence in the moment?
Yeah. That's
the big question around this for me. Can he do something different to what everybody else does when they face John Jones? And that is not even get started. Right. That's the challenge for him.
Yep, get past the John Jones voodoo. For that, you'll have to go and check out some previous episodes. Let's get into the facts and stats for this one then. He's got to be one of the most featured athletes on this programme. Always a pleasure breaking down the champ. These are interesting for me, Dan, because Dominic Reyes typically doesn't fight guys that are bigger than him, but equally John Jones hasn't faced that many guys of his... I mean, apart from Gustafsson, maybe. This reach is always huge, but Reyes did really well against OSP, giving away some reach then in that fight.
Yeah, he does well against people with a reach advantage, mainly because of the way that he fights. He's very good at creating angles. He's very good at moving laterally, whether he's moving forward or back. The other thing as well, you know, I mean, the height's very much the same, so it's not like there's a massive deficit. I mean, having the 77-inch reach disadvantage, a disadvantage in reach, and then also being shorter as well. That's when you really see John Jones start to tower over people. Yeah. Whereas reach is much more about how you fight. Unfortunately for Reyes, Jones is excellent at using his reach, but he doesn't always. He had a reach and height advantage on Glover Teixeira, but put himself in the pocket. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, I mean, John Jones has his reach advantage on everybody in the UFC aside from Stefan Struve. Right. So we can always assume he's going to have that advantage. It's whether he chooses to use it, as well as all the other advantages that Jones brings to the octagon. Does he choose to use them, or, you know, does he try and beat his opponent at their game, which is one of the reasons why we love him so much? I've
brought the highlight onto the record as well, because Jones has more than twice the amount of experience, and he really has kind of just been there and done it all, right?
He has, and the other thing to consider is, you know, I mean, Reyes has had... This is his 13th fight. Jones has had 13 victories in title fights. So the experience that John Jones has got at this high level compared to where Reyes is at, I mean, it isn't comparable.
And I think there's another point where, if my memory serves me correctly, when Dominic Reyes made his professional debut, Jones was already in UFC title fights.
Yes, yeah, and I think he was about to fight Cormier when Reyes made his UFC debut as well, so gives you kind of an idea of timescale. Jones has been right at the top, which means that when, you know, much like when Weidman beat Anderson Silva, when Reyes was coming up, John Jones was already the man. Yes. So, I mean, we could be looking at a whole group of fighters that are basically constructed to try and beat John Jones.
Yeah, a lot of note-taking, I'm sure, amongst that crop. Whether they get those rematches or not, we shall see. But let's talk about this fight. And let's start with Dominic Reyes. I'm going to keep this really broad, you know. What has this guy got to do?
This is the problem when we're breaking down someone that's had the division locked down for a while. I almost feel a bit like a defence lawyer, like I'm trying to prove a case to you as to why the contender.
But that's fair enough, right?
It is. I mean, I sometimes think that people don't understand that when we're watching the analysis.
That's a good point.
But, you know, it's important for you to know that, especially if there's a champion as dominant as John Jones, it's important for you to know where Dominic Reyes can win the fight. My analysis is not to tell you who's going to win the fight, it's to tell you how they're going to win if they are going to win. The most likely way for Dominic Reyes to win is to be himself in that first round. Attack him early, keep your striking diverse, use your angles, but keep pressure on him. I mean, he's right in front of Cannonier here. Beautiful footwork and movement, lovely uppercuts on the inside, and then when he chases him down, it's not just one punch over and over again. It's a variety of attacks, different angles, different kicks. So he's not only is he an instinctive fighter because he's looking at the targets and the chaos, but he's also got different tools to apply to those targets. A power punch like Anthony Johnson. He hits you with one punch and you're hurt, and you know that punch is coming again until you fall over. Whereas Reyes, you don't know which strike's coming from which angle because they've got so many different options.
Okay.
He's got a variety of kicks as well, which I think he can utilise if he has John on the back foot. The most likely thing is, though, if you're going to get John on the back foot, it's going to be the first round. I think your chances of beating John Jones drop the more time you spend standing in front of him, because I just think he downloads your movement patterns. And I think that first round against John Jones, maybe catch him cold, maybe catch him by surprise. Jones is not going to start fast because there's no reason to. There's no reason for him to come out and go flying onto a fist at Dominic Reyes in this fight when he can just kind of hang back and read him for 5 minutes. He's a master at 25 minutes of dominance. So really, it's Dominic Reyes that's got to break that rhythm and start fast.
But Dan, it seems to me that every opponent of Jones that steps into the octagon, no matter what skill set they seem to have, they never really seem to be getting started these days.
No, you're right. And this is something that's become more evident in John Jones's game as he's progressed through it as well. He understands that instead of trying to, like, ride the chaos in the fight and try and flow with it, he now just slows it down. He brings it to his pace. It's his octagon. That's what you feel when you step in there against John Jones. So most of the time, like if you're Anthony Smith or you're Thiago Santos, you get in there with the idea that you've got to attack John Jones. But then you get in there and it's difficult to get started because every time you start thinking about doing something, he just picks and pokes and prods at you. This is why Reyes starting fast might be a benefit to him, because the more time you spend standing in front of John Jones, the more he understands what your attack is, where you want to move, what your counters are when he throws, like throwing lazy shots to see what you're going to throw back. Threw it twice in a row there. He's looking for things 3 times in a row. This is where he uses his reach so well. This is where you feel like John Jones has the biggest reach in the UFC. And let's have a look at this. This is probably the best example I've found of this clip, because watch what John Jones does to Santos. Santos came out aggressive. He came out to try and land loads of low kicks in that first round. But watch his feet. Every time he tries to step over that front line, John pushes him back. There's something to jam him and push him back over that line. It means that before he even gets started, he's got to think about that forward progression. I've got to step first before I do anything. As soon as he steps, he's being hit by something. A jab, you know what I mean? Something that just disrupts. It's nothing, completely non-commitment from John Jones in that first round. Just picking, prodding. I see you're going to move, I'm going to poke you. See you're going to move, I'm going to poke you. And people, after 5 minutes, they find themselves in this defensive shell where then John Jones has controlled the centre of the octagon. They find themselves backed up against the fence, moving laterally on John Jones's terms. And every time they try and make any progress and step over that line, bang, you push back against the fence. And something we discussed in the McGregor breakdown, using that additional 45-degree angle in the corner is something Jones uses very well as well, particularly for his kicking. Like, he'll scoop people onto kicks. He'll do certain things. Watch this high kick. No reason for that high kick other than to force OSP onto the back kick. Yep. And it was consistent in his Santos fight. This is a beautiful clip. I talk about closing doors a lot when someone's backed up against the fence. So in this position, Santos is backed up against the fence. So John's giving him a 50-50 option. There are 2 ways that Santos can progress here. He can escape out of this side, or he can move along the fence here. Now, John's not going to give you 2 options. He's not going to do that. He's going to close one of those doors for you. And I talk about closing doors a lot. The way that John does this is so nice. It's so casual. And this, again, it's the reach advantage. It's making that door feel like it's closed. Watch what he does with his lead hand. So the lead hand comes out and he's just tapping, but you can see it's starting to edge Santos in this direction before he throws his kick. Like, he forces people onto the direction of his kicks. It's such a beautiful way of using the space. And I really don't think we're understanding how to fully use the octagon yet. Same thing with Anthony Smith. He knows the direction he's going because he's forced him to go that direction. Walks him straight onto a kick. Like, that's the danger when you're up against the fence with John Jones, is that you're then susceptible for whatever attack he chooses, because you're kind of at the whim of his movement. And with that range and reach advantage, finding yourself with your back foot up against the fence where John's deciding which way you're going to move, you're always going to walk onto something that's going to beat you up, bruise you up. And because he's not looking for that finish, he's not looking for the kill shot, he's looking to just slowly dismantle you, you know? He's like a veteran military commander, right? You don't look at an opponent and go, right, we're just going to charge their front line straight on. Jon Jones goes, OK, let's start with some propaganda. Then we'll attack their supply lines. You know what I mean? And then we'll hide some guys in the flanks and we'll draw their attack and then we'll pincer them from the sides.
Yeah.
It's far more complex than just let's fight.
Yes.
And a lot of the time when people get in there against Jon Jones, it's like, I've just got to fight him. But he's playing this whole game of witchcraft, this whole voodoo game around you that most guys, especially 12 fights into your career, you might not have even experienced that before. Then you stepping in there against the best in the world at it can be a real shock to the system.
And he enjoys every single element of that game as well. He looks like he's just having fun, like it's playful. One thing that I will say, though, Thiago Santos did some very good work with the leg kicks early in that one. And Dominic Reyes, well, looking back through my research of him, he's pretty darn good at hitting that leg as well.
He is. He's a good kicker and he's got good lateral movement. So if he does find himself backed up against the fence, he's got options. It's not like he doesn't have options. This is what's exciting about Reyes. With the last two opponents of Jon Jones, they are sprint attack fighters. Santos and Smith, they move forward, they charge forward, they create chaos, and then they ride that chaos by landing shots around it while people are reeling backwards.
Nice.
You know, think to the Shogun fight against Smith. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You start the chaos with one shot and then you chase them down for the finish. Reyes is like that, but he's also got another side to his game as well, which is him moving back and circling off laterally. Now, the low kicks is going to be a big key. Reyes would be a fool not to come into this fight with the idea that he can do some damage with low kicks. Like, Jon's got a long stance. He's got skinny legs. He's got long, skinny legs. So, like, attacking the calf seems like an obvious target.
I'd have thought so.
I mean, you've mentioned this before. Are you surprised that people haven't targeted that? I think one of the reasons is because he will just jab and punch you over it, so people don't feel safe. But with the lateral movement that Reyes has got, as he's moving around, as he's chopping into that leg, and we have to also remember that this fight is Southpaw v Orthodox.
Right.
Which is, you know, he's got power targets. He's got the inside low kick, he's got the liver, and he's got the head kick. 3 good targets for him to work, but that lead leg is going to be the key. Because taking that away from Jon Jones, it might not slow him down too much, but it will force him to make a decision one way or the other. Because it was a problem for the Santos fight. He had to adapt. You know what I mean? There were changes that had to be made into the second round of that fight to make sure that he wasn't continually taking those shots.
Yeah.
So even just forcing Jon to adapt is a positive.
There is so much to talk about here. Long-standing champion against an undefeated fighter. Much more coming up after the break. Welcome back to UFC Inside the Octagon, where we're talking about the title fight for the 205-pound belt between Jon Bones Jones and Dominic Reyes. Dan, give us a little recap of where we're up to so far, please.
OK, so the Reyes that we want to see in this fight is the aggressive fast starter, because that's the best opportunity to beat Jon Jones, catch him cold. So an aggressive Reyes might be able to catch Jon Jones early, land a couple of shots, maybe even stun him, finish with a rear naked choke. I'm just talking about possibilities. The likelihood is that he won't start with that confidence, and Jon Jones will start to dictate the centre with those breaking rhythm shots where he's not committing to anything until he's got you backed up against the fence. Then he starts with the kicks. So if we assume Reyes is going to get backed up against the fence, what are his options there? Low kicks being the main one you pointed out from the Santos fight. And I think it is a key. You know, Jones said in the post-fight interview, as you said, a hole in my game was exposed, something that I'll work on next time. And before I even start speculating as to how that's going to go, at the end of the first round in the Santos fight, he went back to his corner and Greg Jackson said to him clearly, if you back him up against the fence, it will shut down the calf kick. Basically, like, crowd him and it takes away that opportunity, that shot. So in the second round, Jones came out far more aggressive. And if you remember that was actually when Santos injured his leg, throwing the kick, and Jones just sliding out the way of it. But I feel like the approach to Jon Jones, if he's starting to take those kicks, he's not to move away, it's to move in. So then we have Jon Jones working into the clinch. And that's when he does his really nasty work. I mean, that's the best way of putting it. It's nasty work that he does inside. He's a mean fighter. Like, that is a strength for a fighter. If your brain works like that, Joanna's the same, you know? If she's got you in a position where she can crack you with an elbow, she's going to do it. Yeah. Some fighters wouldn't even think about it. If you injure your knee against Jon Jones, he's going to attack that knee. If you're fighting Roxanne Modafferi, she'll kick your other leg. A difference in mentality. I love both, but it's different. See, that's the wrench on the shoulder. So all of these things that Reyes has got to deal with, if he gets backed up against the fence and he's not able to do anything with the low kick, Jones getting into this range is nightmares for everybody. Like, Reyes has got a good clinch. If you watch there's another one of his fights on Fight Pass from before his UFC career. The guy comes at him and he clinched him and lands some knees. There are options for him, but in that range, I've just not seen anyone get close to Jon Jones. He's so good at keeping his head out of range, rolling under shots, cracking you with elbows, hand fighting. You know, he reaches forward and he forces you to lock horns with him and starts coming around the sides. That's that, as I was talking about in the first half, that you charge the centre, but only to draw their attack and then you go around the sides. Yeah. Like, different levels of thinking for Jon Jones. And, like, having to comprehend all of that in the same time in a fight situation, that's the real challenge for Reyes. The only benefit, I would say, for him is that he's an instinctive fighter. So there's not an overthinking process when he is under pressure.
Yeah, because the evidence that I've seen from Reyes when he's come under pressure is that he's fared pretty well. And I think OSP is an example of that, Weidman as well. So as a counter to that onslaught from Jones, Reyes has showed that he can come out of that looking pretty good.
Yeah, he has. You mentioned the right fights as well, and I would even go back to the Cannonier fight. Yes. You know, like the uppercut on the inside of the clinch, really nice. But this playlist is all about that left hand. It's that sniper left hand that he uses. And the reason that this is a really useful punch is because not only does he hit his opponent across the chin cleanly, but he's also out of danger when he's throwing it. Bang. Let me show you this on the aerial replay, because we need to understand what he's doing here. Okay, so the first thing is, now he's backed up against the fence against OSP. Someone that's probably a bigger fighter, longer range, you know, obviously backed him up against the fence here, throwing kicks. So Reyes is going to catch the kick here, just to slow it down. Keeps a hold of that. Look, it's caught on his forearm. Keeps a hold of that, but then throws a kick to OSP at the same time. Like, countering kicks with kicks is going to be good. Nice low kick. But then watch the bump off the fence, under pressure, heads out to the side, back foot plants, watch the left hand. Bang! Straight through. That is a deep punch. Really nice footwork. I mean, he knew he got the finish there, even though it ended up being a unanimous decision.
And I think that's a really good point, Dan, right? Because he still has that power at the very last second of a fight. OK, 3 rounds, 5 rounds, different. But this kid's got power all the way through. Definitely.
And I think, I mean, that's the only time we've really seen that power in the 3rd round. And I think that bodes well for him because, I mean, we do need to see that. And that bump off the fence that he does, like, if he's under pressure, just removing that front foot, he creates a gap in front of him where his opponent moves into. And that's where the left hand comes over. The Weidman one's even better. Let's enjoy the Weidman one, because that is, I mean, this is picture perfect. Watch this. Little bump out to the side. Bump, bang. And the thing is, when he starts that motion out, it looks like he's moving away, which is what Jon Jones forces people to do. Like, in this circumstance, if he's moving in this direction, it's because Jon Jones has chosen he's moving in that direction. So Jon's just going to assume he's continuing in that direction. Whereas watch Reyes, and it's a strange way he does it as well. He plants that back foot to drive power through it. It's quite a short step. But watch how he moves. The back foot, he's covered, he's circling, covered, bang! And he pulls his elbow up and spears that right into his target. It's a very powerful punch. And I like the fact that he's able to punch through the target. Again, look, bang! I mean, that had impacted him before the fist had even fully connected. So it's a really nice punch. And because it's consistent in his game, I mean, obviously Jones will have spotted it. That'd be something that Jones will be watching out for. But as soon as he sees Jon Jones, we don't know how that game plan's going to play out. But if he feels under pressure, we know that's instinctive for him. Yeah. Either fires it across the chin or steps out and lands the uppercut. 2 good options for someone reaching forward to clinch.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't spoken about is ground fighting. And, I mean, I could stand here and tee you up on all sorts of things with Jon Jones, but he's gone from playing at whatever the opponent's best game is, Teixeira, I think, against the fence. Does what they want to do. He can finish this fight in any way that he wants to on his best day, right?
Yes. Yes, he can. And there are lots of different ways he can get this fight to the floor. I mean, credentially, he's a better wrestler. Reyes had a high school wrestling background, but, I mean, that was earlier in his life. He crossed over to other sports after that. So I would say Jones is going to feel like that safety net that he's got is always going to be the wrestling. The most likely way for this fight to end up on the floor, if it happens fast, is a kick catch. I mean, we've not seen Jones do it a lot, but again, because he's got such long arms. Like, if I'm an orthodox fighter and a southpaw's kicking my inside leg, like, I will see Jon Jones grab that leg. I'll see him hook it to the body as well and then start forcing the takedown. But if he finds himself in the clinch, these are the takedowns. These nice, clean level changes where he's got the strength to pick people up and slam them. Reyes finds himself in this position. He has got good takedown defense. We've seen good takedown defense from Reyes. But it's when you get caught in this cycle that DC got caught in. You're not going to find a better wrestler at light heavyweight than Daniel Cormier. And Jones, because of the wear and tear he put on his body in the early rounds, just mauled him. And look at that, a side kick to the leg from the clinch. Like that kind of creativity, you can't find that in the gym. You need a real special individual for that. And this, like, look at Daniel Cormier's face there. I mean, he is a high-level Olympic athlete. He's exhausted and beaten down. So does a high-level athlete like Dominic Reyes do anything different? I mean, his scrambles are different. His scrambles aren't, I mean, there's, like, sometimes he'll get taken down. I mean, look at his frustration when he gets taken down here against Chris Weidman, who takes down most people, let's be fair. But he's frustrated, but he gets back to his feet. And a lot of it is more mechanical scrambles than technical scrambles, because he's not, I mean, all this is against the fence, which is most likely where he's going to be against John Jones. This is a nice technique, though, and this is something that...
I love this.
I say it's a nice technique. It's not a nice technique at all, but here we go. With it sped up, you can see a bit more what's going on, isn't it? Yeah. So you're going to expect Dominic Reyes to be caught in the body lock at some point, and Jones is good at meeting his hands together behind the back, behind the hips and everything. You'll hear the corner shouting this for Dominic Reyes. Cheese grater. What's that going to be? Of course, it's the fence. Now, when you've got your hands locked behind someone's body, obviously you're squeezing them into you, so you're pressuring them, but you're also pressuring them into the fence. So there's pressure on your hands anyway. It's not a comfortable position. You know yourself, getting fingers and thumbs caught in the fence, it's very unpleasant, even with gloves on. Now, I believe that Chris Weidman's got an S-grip in this one, so that makes his digits even more vulnerable. And what Reyes does is he has the underhook on one side, and the overhook on one side, the underhook on the other, and then he drags the hands up and down the fence to basically break the grip. He's done it. He did it in his UFC debut against Kimball as well. Not UFC debut. One of his earlier fights in the UFC. There we go. There's the fingers. Look, like. I mean, let's just have a, like, you could, and this...
It sounds silly, but it's an annoyance.
It's legit.
And it will put you off. And if they do get purchased, it will break that grip.
It's a legitimate technique. Here we go. And the reason I like this is because no one will have seen this bit of footage before, because we have access to cool archive stuff. Like, those fingers are exposed to, and to thick, hard mesh on the UFC fence. When you start getting dragged up and down that, you can't help but your grip pop up.
Like 220, 30-pound guy.
Exactly. And this is against Chris Weidman, who's got a damn good grip. But what happens is here, because Reyes is not holding the position, he's trying to progress the position, he's expecting the grip to break. Once that grip breaks, Weidman reaches for the ankle, but Reyes is ready to control the wrist because he knows that's his first option. He's got the overhook, so he's got this. He's not, Weidman's not going to give up that underhook, but he'll go for that ankle. So Reyes breaking Jones's grip on his terms gives him a slight advantage in the takedown exchange, because he's being proactive instead of being reactive.
I really like this fight. I mean, it's kicking off the year with McGregor and then the pound-for-pound greatest. Who doesn't tune in to watch a John Jones fight? What version? Will we get the playful one, super aggressive one? We're going to find out very shortly. Thank you very much, Dan. Keep the conversation going using the hashtag InsideTheOctagon. Tweets at UFC Europe. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back for the next pay-per-view.